It might be easier walking round if you split it into 10, otherwise you get
Yeah,
throttled.
no, they know we're going to be split a little bit.
Alright, okay. So where you are, just in case you've forgotten, is Anne Hathaway's cottage. Alright, now the first thing I'll tell you is Anne Hathaway and William Shakespeare never lived here as man and wife. On the day they got married, he picked her up at the door over there, was on his horse and cart, took her off to the church, married her, then they went to live in Stratford, in Henley Street, or what is now called the birthplace, but in their time it would have just been the Shakespeare's Glover's Workshop, because nobody knew who Shakespeare was. Alright, the next thing that people find disappointing is that it looked nothing like this when Anne did live here. When she lived here, the cottage started by that open window, and along here, and ended where that brickwork starts. Okay? It was just a 3-room hall cottage. There was one room about half the width of that window, a very small room. Now that room was lost in the modernisation that took place in 1601. Then you had a big rectangular hall that went from halfway along that window to this wall. Just a big rectangular room, no fireplace in there. Then in here you had the cold room, cool room or server room. The thatch line would have run right along that black beam, because there was no need for the windows, because there was no upstairs. Inside it was all open up to the thatch. Okay, and the only fire in this place was in the hall, which was a central open hearth fire. That was to some extent the property. And in here, in that room, would have lived Anne Hathaway, her 7 siblings, a stepmother, a father, a couple of farm labourers and a shepherd in that room. People say to me, well, where did the table go? They didn't have one. Where did the beds go? Didn't have any, they slept on the floor. Yeah, and they would all slept around the open hearth fire. And the open hearth fire, smoke from it just rose up and went out through the thatch. Alright? As you go round, you'll be told various bits and pieces about the place, and you'll find that her brother Bartholomew bought the lease of the property in 1601, and that was the first time the Hathaway family owned it. Alright, prior to then, they were tenant farmers, and later on they became broke in the 1700s and had to sell the lease back to get some money, so they became leaseholders again. Now, when you're walking round, you go first of all into what is now called a parlour, and in there you will see photographs of an elderly lady, and her name is Mary Hathaway Baker, and she was in fact the last of the Hathaway family, females, to live here. And she lived here until she died in 1901. Also, her son carried on living here after she died, and he lived here till 1911. Alright? Now, from the age of about 8, Anne Hathaway would have been responsible for keeping this area clean and tidy. But it wasn't a garden. Didn't have paved flagstones. Didn't have nice benches and shrubs. It was actually a working farmyard. So it would have had pigs and piglets, lambs, dogs, chickens, all sorts of things running around, and she'd have been responsible for looking after it. But the worst task she had, in my opinion, from the age of 8, was getting all the water out of that well and taken it in the house for the needs of all those people we've already mentioned. I certainly can't imagine any of my children doing anything like that at the age of 8. Not at all. But that's the way life was in those days. So when you go in, you see pictures of Mary Baker,